This may be my favorite panel, at least today, talking about the Titans franchise. And we are so fortunate to have the lineup of panelists we have here. You know, Marv Wolfman, who
while the rest of us are sitting here.
Marv Wolfman and friends. Marv Wolfman, whose work on Titans, turned it into a best-selling franchise, and who continues to work with the characters, most recently on the Raven series. Adam Glass, who I think the first 2 issues of your run of Teen Titans are now out.
And the special. So 3.
And the special. 3 issues for that. And Bryan Edward Hill, who his work, I'm sure will be able to say a lot and yet very little about the Titans TV show.
Oh, yeah. I can say that I'm a writer on it, and then maybe like 25 more words.
You can comment without opinion on the trailer, I'm guessing, but that's
I can tell you a funny story about the trailer.
Okay. You want to tell that now?
So I also write comics as well. So I was working on Detective Comics. I was doing a 5-issue run there, leading into my Batman the Outsiders run that starts in December. So my Batman issue had dropped, I think, the Wednesday before the trailer came out. So I woke up that day, and my Twitter's blowing up, like it's like the stock market, and everything is like the hashtag, like F that, F that, F that, F that. And I'm thinking that the entire world is angry with me for something I did in Detective Comics. So I'm gonna hide from social media. I go to my wife and I'm what did he do last issue? I think he just beat up a bad guy and jump off a roof. He always does that. Why are they so mad? And then I found out that it was the trailer that people were responding to, and they were making a hashtag out of that. So it wasn't my issue of Detective, which I was glad to know. For the record, Bryan Hill did not write that line. I'm not the one responsible for that.
But did Bryan Edward Hill write the line?
He did not write that line either. I think that's pilot stuff. I think that was done when I got here. Because Akita's on there and Jeff John's doing it. And it's a really passionate project, so I'm really excited for you guys to take a look at it.
So, well, I will open this up for questions fairly quickly, but to start, I thought I would work my way down the line, starting with Marv, and ask sort of your first exposure to Teen Titans as a thing.
Raven Bold, when it wasn't even called Teen Titans, it was called Robin, Kid Flash, and Aqualad. And then the next one, they finally came in with the name Teen Titans. And then it became a series. Right, it became a series after that. And though not a lot of people realize it, I actually wrote for that original series. I wrote the Russian superhero Starfire back then, now renamed Red Star, because I appropriated my own name. And then I did the origin of Wonder Girl, the original one that introduced the name Donna Troy and who she was and all of that sort of stuff. And also secretly, the thing that nobody really knows is I worked helping on the plotting of the 3-part story that Neil Adams drew and mostly wrote. So those are my beginnings for the Titans. Did you want me to say anything about this one, the current version?
We'll get there.
Okay,
I have a system, kind of.
Yes, but I don't know it.
The mystery will keep everyone interested. Adam, your first exposure?
So I grew up in New York in the Bronx, and I would go to the candy store back when there were candy stores and comics in candy stores, and on the rack I see Robot Man hanging on what is like an Aztec temple, and Robin and Kid Flash with a flashlight finding him, and I went, oh my god, what is this? And it was Marv Wolfman and George Perez's run on Teen Titans, and I would say not only did it change my life, and get me into comic books, like really hardcore. So you're sort of like my entry drug into comic books.
Well, a lot of people thought I should be drugged.
And of course that leads to me one of the greatest runs ever, Judas Contract and all those things. So that was my into Teen Titans, and I love the comic books. Thank you, Marv.
Bryan.
Well, the first Teen Titans content I remember is the Who is Donna Troy story. Because beautifully executed, almost like film noir story with those characters. And that was one of the first times I'd seen the form get evolved in superhero comics. Because I was reading a lot of superhero comics, but they were all pretty bog standard. But that story, I was like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. And I honestly got into Robin through the Teen Titans. You know, when it came to Batman, I was very much a solo Batman guy. You know, I was very much like Batman is the Dark Knight. I don't understand children next to him. I don't really get it. So I didn't dislike Dick Grayson. I just didn't get it. You know, it wasn't a thing for me. But, you know, I read the Who is Donna Troy story, and then I saw how Marv was creating Dick and like evolving him into a man on the verge of manhood in a way. Mm. And I was a little, you know, older than like being a kid when they got it, because they weren't on the shelf when I was picking up my monthlies. I kind of came back around and got to them. But I was thinking about some of the same decisions when I saw the book, and so it kind of spoke to me. I mean, you know, stories arrive at a moment in time.
Yep.
And if you're in the same headspace as a character, that's probably you know, going to be a character that you're going to bridge yourself to, and that's how I got into the kind of the world around Batman, was through that book. So thank you, Mark.
Definitely a pleasure.
I think everyone, well, I guess we can't really ask Bryan questions, but
Yeah,
everyone
you can ask me anything, but the Hill administration might have no comment at this time.
I think the interesting thing about the more modern, you know, modern being as recent as the 80s version of the Titans, is the combination of the sort of sidekick and junior versions of the characters with entirely new characters, which, you know, you don't have the brand recognition, but you don't have the obligations of someone who is Superman's friend would never do that kind of stuff. But what goes into it for you when you're creating, and you've got at least 3 new members right now, I think. Marv, you certainly brought some stuff to the table when you sort of reinvented the thing in the 80s.
Well, what George and I wanted to do, and it's important to list both of us, because we did work as a team. I may have come in with the plot ideas, but then we sat down and broke them down together and really worked out all the things that George went off and drew and adding a ton of stuff. So what we wanted to do was not do kids. We weren't interested in teenagers, so to speak, in the way that comics have always played teenagers before. They were always the sidekick to somebody else. Now, I remember if the Teen Titans were 17 or 18 years old, except for Changeling / Beast Boy, I remember being that age. Certainly, I remember it when I was in 1980 when we created it. And we weren't as stupid as most of the teenage sidekicks. And my rule was no adult supervision. Absolutely, I hated it. And Mark and I get along fine, but when he first started, he was writing the Who's Who stuff, and he wanted to put Mr. Jupiter, which was a character in the original Titans, in as this guiding force, because he grew up with the Mr. Jupiter stuff. And I said, absolutely not. We got into a knockdown drag out fight, and he won. We made it so that these characters would be capable of anything that a real 16, 17, 18-year-old would. They emotionally, they are not little kids. They certainly have intelligence, and they had to be played as that age group, 18, 19, and 20, as we moved the characters along. So it was vital that these be real people and not just sidekicks hoping one day. They don't need the adults, and that's what the whole interpretation of the revision of Dick Grayson was. We do not need Batman. We do not need Aquaman. We do not need Wonder Woman. We do not need them telling us what to do. We are 1 year shy of being able to vote. And in some cases, a few of them could vote. They are adults in many ways. And it's important that that approach be followed and not break free from it, because that's not the way comics were. That sentence made not what a sense in my head. But the whole Nightwing thing came because they wanted to make Dick Grayson. The Batman people wanted to get Dick Grayson back into Batman, Robin back into Batman, and make Dick Grayson younger again. And I fought tooth and nail because I believe that people, and at that point I thought he was like 18, 19 years old, he was fully capable of being where he was, so I suggested they create their own Robin, and I just keep the main character, and that worked out for all of us, actually, because they were able to create a whole bunch of new Robins after that. But that's what you think about. You want to know what this book is about, and it's not about fighting villains. It's about people on that verge of maturity, figuring things out, and learning to work together. And that is what the series was about. We had good villains, but that was to keep it interesting and exciting. If I could have gotten rid of villains and just wrote the people stories, I would have been even happier.